If you had to rate our society's capacity for respectful and open debate, what grade would you give us out of 10? I fear we might not earn a passing grade. In fact, we live in a culture of silence, in which debate is stifled and dissenting opinions are ignored or vilified. Over the last 2 years, perhaps no word has gained more cliché than misinformation, which we are told is spreading at such a viral rate that it's causing an infodemic. The word misinformation litters our politicians' speeches and is invoked by our judges in court documents. It's the favorite stand-in for argument among journalists, and it's used as ammunition to block unacceptable views on social media. Misinformation, by all accounts, has become one of the most powerful words in the English language. But what does it mean? Is misinformation just false information? Or is it more like a lie or a rumor? Where did the word misinformation come from? And where does it get its power? Let's break it down. Even before the pandemic began, misinformation was Dictionary.com's word of the year in 2018. But the word actually dates to the 16th century, coming from the Old English mis for wrong or mistaken, and information. We spread false information every day. We aren't perfect beings. We forget, mishear, and misremember details. You tell your friend the bus comes at 9 a.m. when really it comes at 8:55 because you accidentally read an old bus schedule. The Chicago Tribune's infamous 1948 headline, "Dewey defeats Truman," is a good example. But disinformation is a different thing altogether. It cares about intent. It weaponizes falsehoods. The disinformer says, I know this thing is false, and I'm going to spread it because it's false. I'm going to tell my friend that the bus comes 5 minutes later than it does because I want her to miss an important job interview. Not all acts of disinformation are nefarious. Plato's noble lie, for example, is ostensibly a lie aimed at creating political stability. So is disinformation new? Well, in 1835, the New York Sun published a series of articles claiming to describe life on the moon, complete with illustrations of humanoid bat creatures and bearded blue unicorns. The Great Moon Hoax, it was called, is arguably the first recorded large-scale disinformation campaign. 200 years before this, the Italian pasquinade, a literary form of satire that often appeared on statues, developed as a way of spreading fake news about public figures. But the word itself is relatively new, dating only to 1949 to the Russian desinformatsiya. Whenever it developed, one thing that is clear is that disinformation is intentionally destructive. And intent in law and morality matters. If I innocently misinform you about the bus's arrival time, I perhaps can't be relied on for accurate information, but that isn't necessarily a moral failing. But if I misinform you out of spite, then that says something about who I am as a person. Where does our desire to punish the misinformer so harshly come from? Let's think back to our tribal origins. In a tribe, your safety is linked to the tribe's safety. And so you must be especially aware of what threatens it. If a tribe member thinks that a berry is safe to eat when it isn't, that could mean the death of your tribe. And so identifying and punishing the misinformer would seem to be an important tribal skill. We no longer live in tribes, at least we don't in some sense, but it may be that our distrust of misinformers has outlived our tribal origins. So what do we lose when we cancel the misinformer? We need to be careful not to assume that just because an opinion is different from our own, or even different from industry consensus, that it is therefore wrong, or that if it is wrong, it is spread with malicious intent. We have a tendency now to assume that all misinformation is disinformation, and that reasonable disagreement is impossible. The 19th century utilitarian philosopher John Stuart Mill cautioned against suppressing free expression. He wrote, "The peculiar evil of silencing the expression of an opinion is that it is robbing the human race, those who dissent from the opinion, still more than those who hold it. If the opinion is right, they are deprived of the opportunity of exchanging error for truth. If wrong, they lose what is, at most, a great benefit, the clearer perception and livelier impression of truth, produced by its collision with error." In a recent case in the Ontario Court of Appeal, Justice Pazaratz addressed the issue of misinformation. He asked, "Is misinformation even a real word, or has it become a crass, self-serving tool to preempt scrutiny and discredit your opponent, to delegitimize questions and strategically avoid giving answers? A childish but sinister way of saying, 'You're so wrong, I don't even have to explain why you're wrong.'" Accusing others of spreading misinformation has been a way to get ourselves off the hook of having to give real explanations to real problems. But if we want to work our way out of our culture of silence and get ourselves a passing grade in terms of our capacity for open, reasoned debate, putting ourselves back on the hook is a good place to begin. Thanks for hanging out with me today. If you enjoyed watching this video, please consider making a tax-deductible donation to the democracyfund.ca/donate.